A stove is the simplest big machine in your kitchen. It is a metal box, some burners, a heating element, and a thermostat. That is the whole idea, and it has not really changed in 70 years. Which makes it strange that I spent the back half of my career hauling perfectly good stoves out to the curb because one part had died and there was no part to replace it with. Today, I am going to answer the question you came here for, which is what stove you should actually buy. The answer surprised me too, and I will warn you now, it is not a brand name. My name is Richard Nakamura, and I fixed appliances in other people's homes for 30 years. Let me be honest about where this comes from. I did not run a test. What I have is 4 things: the published service data from a dealer up in Boston called Yale, the reliability work Consumer Reports does, a survey where a review outfit sat down with 9 different appliance repair companies and asked them straight out which brands they trust, and 3 decades of my own hands. All of it is linked below. Now here is the first thing you need to make peace with. There is no longer one brand I can point at and tell you to buy anything with that badge on it. There isn't. Every one of them makes a good stove, and every one of them makes a bad one, sometimes in the same showroom, 12 feet apart. So if you came for a brand name, you are going to get several, but the brand is not the answer. The rule is the answer. Here is the rule, and then the number that proves it. The rule is this: the more your stove can do, the sooner it will die. Not because manufacturers are lazy, but because every feature is another part, another sensor, another wire, another thing sitting between you and a hot burner. Now here is the number, and this one settled it for me. A gas range in this country averages 15 to 18 years. An electric range averages 13 to 15. Same appliance, same kitchen, same job, and the gas one lives 3 years longer. And when you go read why, the reason given is not the flame. It is that a gas range has fewer electrical components that can fail. There it is. Fewer things to break equals more years. Nobody has to take my word for it, and nobody has to trust a brand. That gap is the whole video. So let me tell you what that means when you are standing in the store. The single most important decision you will make is knobs or glass. I mean that literally. A stove with real mechanical knobs and an analog thermostat has almost nothing in it that can strand you. A stove with a black glass touch panel across the top has a control board behind that glass, and that board is the part that decides how long you own the machine. Here is what happens when it goes, because I made this call more times than any other. The board dies, and the stove does not half work. It stops. No oven, no clock, no display, sometimes not even the burners. The part itself runs $100 to $300 typically, and I've seen them over $700. Add the labor, and a normal job lands around $400 all in, and it can run $200 to $600. But the money is not what used to bother me. What bothered me was the other call, the one where I looked the part up and it had been discontinued, and the only ones left in the world were pulled out of dead machines by somebody on the internet. At that point, I am standing in a kitchen telling a family that a stove with perfectly good burners, a perfectly good oven cavity, and a perfectly good igniter is finished because of a piece of plastic and silicone the size of a paperback. A stove with knobs does not have that failure. When something goes wrong on one of those, you replace a switch or an igniter, parts that cost $20 or $30 and that everybody stocks. So that is your first decision, and everything else is smaller. But Let me go through the features you are going to be offered, because you will be offered all of them. Air fry. Skip it. An air fry setting is your convection fan running hot with a basket, and if the oven has convection, you already own it. It is a label and a tray. Go read the owner reviews on the slide-in ranges that lead with air fry, and you will find the same complaints over and over. Touch panels that stop responding, error codes that will not clear until you go out to the panel and cut power to the whole stove. One owner had the inner door glass on a slide-in shatter the first time they used it. None of those are cooking problems. They are all problems with the things bolted on around the cooking. Double ovens. I understand the appeal completely, and if you host Thanksgiving for 18 people, fine. But understand you are buying 2 of everything in one cabinet, 2 elements, 2 sensors, 2 door mechanisms, twice the failure points, and both of them tied to that one control board. Wi-Fi and smart dials and screens. This one I will keep short. The cooking part of that stove will run 15 years. The screen and the wireless module will not, and when they go, you will not be replacing them for anything sensible. Then there is self-clean. I have said this before, and I am going to say it again here, because this is the video where it belongs. That cycle runs the oven up to around 900 degrees for hours, and the most common thing to fail during it is the thermal fuse, and a thermal fuse does not reset. That same heat is what cooks the control board sitting right behind the panel. Every self-clean cycle is a roll of the dice on the exact part I just told you decides the life of your stove. Now for brands and actual models, because I promised you those. Start with the one I would buy, and it is not a premium machine. It is a GE, model JGBS 30DKWW. That is a plain, freestanding gas range with mechanical knobs across the front, a sealed 13,000 BTU burner, a dedicated low-simmer burner, and a 4.8 cubic foot oven running on an analog thermostat. No board, no glass, no menu. It is the cheapest sort of thing in the aisle, and it is built exactly the way my mother's stove was built. If somebody asked me for one model number and nothing else, that is the one I would give them. Now on brands generally. In that survey of 9 appliance repair companies, 5 of the 9 named GE as the most reliable range brand, which is the closest thing to a consensus you will get out of technicians about anything. GE Profile also came in second in Yale's service numbers with a 3.6% service rate, which is very good. Whirlpool posted the lowest service rate Yale recorded in that period, 2.5%, and 2 of the 9 technicians named it as well. Whirlpool ranges are plain machines, and that is a compliment. KitchenAid and Thermador both came up repeatedly with the technicians too, and if you are shopping the higher end, they earn their place. Thermador in particular is the same story I told you about their dishwashers and their refrigerators, which is that underneath the luxury panel, it is solid engineering, and you are paying for the fit and the finish, rather than for a machine that fails less. If you have decided on induction, that is Bosch. Their induction cooktops are the most reliable in that entire category, and their induction ranges sit in the top 3. I want to be fair about induction because I know some of you are considering it. It cooks beautifully, and it is the safest surface there is. No open flame, and the glass stays cool enough that a spill does not weld itself on. But be clear about the trade you are making. An induction range is the most electronic cooking surface you can buy. Every zone has a power board under it. So you are choosing a machine that cooks better and is built more complex, And that is a legitimate choice, as long as you make it with your eyes open. If you go that way, go Bosch, and ask the shop in your town whether they work on induction at all, because plenty of small shops still do not. And if all you want is a cooktop and the oven is separate, there is a simple one worth knowing about: the Frigidaire FGG C45QS. Gas, no electronics to speak of, just burners and knobs, nothing to admire and nothing to break. But now I have to give you the part that actually surprised me, and it is why this video is called what it is called. Look at LG. In the most recent service data, LG posted the lowest first-year service rate of anybody, 2.5%. On paper, it is the winner. And yet, several of those repair technicians, the people who fix these for a living, said avoid it. Then look at Samsung, 4.5% in Yale's numbers, which is a perfectly respectable figure, and the repair professionals flagged it almost unanimously, not for breaking, but for parts. Weeks of waiting for a part to come in, with your stove sitting there dead in the middle of your kitchen. For a long time, I could not square that, and then it became obvious. A first-year service rate answers one question: did the machine survive 12 months? That is a real question, and it is worth knowing. But it is not your question. Your question is whether somebody can keep this thing alive in year 7 and year 10, and no first-year number on Earth measures that. That is why the spreadsheets and the technicians disagree. The spreadsheet is measuring the warranty. The technician is remembering the phone call he had to make afterward. So use both. The numbers tell you what leaves the factory working. The people who repair them tell you what you can still fix. Now, 3 things you have to do yourself, because the best stove in the world will not survive a bad start. First, the installation. Every one of these comes with an anti-tip bracket that screws to the floor or the wall, and I have found more of those still sitting in the bag inside the drawer than I care to think about. That bracket is what stops the stove tipping forward when somebody leans on an open oven door. Check yours tonight. Grab the back of the stove and try to tilt it toward you. If it moves, that bracket is not in. Second, your burners. When a gas burner clicks and will not light, 9 times out of 10, the igniter is dirty, or a burner port is blocked, not broken. Lift the cap off, brush the ports clean, wipe the igniter carefully, dry everything, and put it back. That is a 10-minute job I used to get paid a service call for. Third, the oven door seal. Run your hand around that gasket. If it is torn or flattened, the oven leaks heat, cooks unevenly, and runs the element far more than it should. It is a cheap part, and one of the few on a modern stove that you really can change yourself. Let me tell you where my head is on all this. My mother had a gas stove in Ohio with 4 knobs and a needle thermostat that was not accurate, and everybody knew it was not accurate. She cooked on that thing my entire childhood, and it was still going years after I had started making my living pulling other people's stoves apart. It was not a good stove. Nobody would have called it good. It just did not have anything on it that could break. And the 2 things that ever did break on it, my father fixed on a Saturday. I did not think about that much until I started standing in kitchens telling people that a $400 circuit board had ended a $2,000 range. My mother did not buy a better machine than they did. She bought a simpler one, and simple is what turned out to be worth something. So here is the answer to the question in the title. The best stove to buy is the plainest one that does what you actually cook on. Buy knobs over glass. Buy gas over electric if you have the line. And if you have decided on induction, by Bosch. Take GE or Whirlpool if you want the safest badge, and if you want one model number, the GE JGBS 30DKDWW. Skip air fry, skip the second oven, skip the screen, and think hard before you ever press self-clean. And before you buy anything, call a repair shop in your town and ask whether they work on it and whether they can get parts, because that is the question no rating covers. One honest word to finish. Plain does not mean immortal, and knobs will not save a badly built machine. Every brand on this list makes something I would not take home. What I am telling you is where the odds sit and why they sit there. And the reason the answer surprised me is that after 30 years in this trade, the best machine in the store turned out to be the cheapest one on the wall. Tell me down in the comments what stove you cook on, how old it is, and whether it has knobs or a glass panel, because I have a hunch the oldest ones in that comment section are all going to have knobs. I read every single one. My grandmother used to tell me about matinai. It means nothing good should ever be wasted. Not the thing in your hands, and not the knowing of how to keep it.